This episode of Behind the Video is brought to you by the Independent Media Network. The Independent Media Network helps journalists and content creators create their own jobs by building sustainable online businesses. If you're an unemployed or underemployed journalist or content creator, visit imnct.com for more information. Hey everybody, we are back. This is Behind the Video, episode number 22. Joining me, Lon Seidman, as always, are our co-hosts, Goldie Chan. Hey, Goldie.
Hey.
And Tim Street.
Hey.
Hey. So, Goldie, the first thing our viewers will notice, those who watch on video, is that your wall is barren.
I know. So I am actually moving from Los Angeles back to the Bay Area. I have a couple projects I'm working on. Very excited, and I will let you guys know when I'm legally allowed to talk about them.
Excellent. Well,
I thought you got robbed. I thought someone broke in and they were like, "Oh my God, I need that poster."
And
Yes.
the 110% that was on the wall last time.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't take my laptop, the least expensive thing in my apartment.
Right. Yeah. It's funny, if you have a Windows laptop, this is a sad story to some degree. My sister-in-law had her apartment broken into a while ago. They left the computer. So they did find the people that did it and everything was recovered, but it was like that commercial where they leave the computer in there. So speaking of high-end equipment, I got myself one of these iPhone 5s. There it is. See that? Now, what's funny about the iPhone is that when you write about the iPhone or do a video about the iPhone, you get a lot of traffic. So, pro tip for those of you out there: if you want traffic, just talk about the iPhone. It seems to drive things. So, what's going on in your world, Tim?
Tonight, we've got Social Media Week going on this week all over the country, all over the world, and in Los Angeles tonight, the International Academy of Web Television is doing a panel at the W in Hollywood, and it's going to be a fun panel. It's about social media and storytelling, which is kind of a fun thing. We've got Bernie Sue, who's been a guest on our show, and he's going to be talking about Lizzie Bennett. We have the Fine brothers. We have a couple other folks as well, and we're going to be talking about how you interact with your audience using social media, how you spin stories and create fake characters, and kind of all the stuff that Lonely Girl 15 did in the early days of web video. We're going to be talking about how it's expanded, and should be a fun panel. I don't know if we're recording it or not, but if you're in Hollywood tonight, come check it out at the W.
That sounds like a really neat idea. And to some degree, Tim, Vids, your ebook was kind of an early version of that, right? You could have, if there was a platform, it may have done what Lonely Girl could have done, right?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the early days back in 99, 2000, when I started playing in this space, it was really hard to interact with the audience. You didn't have blogs back then, or they were early. RSS feeds were just emerging, and it wasn't as easy to get your hands on the tools the way that you can post a video now on YouTube and have a comment section. I mean, you would have to build all that yourself and host the video of yourself. And, it's been really nice of YouTube and then Google, once they bought YouTube, to kind of fund all of our video bandwidth for the last 6-7 years. I can't imagine how online video would have grown because in the early days, some of the videos that I would do, my bandwidth for the videos was like $4,000 a month is what I was spending in bandwidth bills, and there was no way to monetize it back then. We were doing it, trying to figure out a way to monetize it, and we couldn't. And it really wasn't until iTunes came out with video podcasting that we found a way to monetize.
That's fascinating. And what's funny now, of course, is YouTube actually pays you in addition to, not always as much as we'd like, perhaps, but certainly, they still do pay pretty well, actually, compared to, paying $4,000 a month. So that's certainly there.
Yeah, so we're looking forward. Emmett Fury is going to be there talking about his series Solace, Fury of Solace, and Angelique Tachki, she's going to be talking about the different social media things that she handles. I mean, for the International Academy of Web Television, she does all the online social media for that, as well as I think she does Shakey's Pizza. So it'll be fun to hear all the things that these creators have to talk to, and Benny and Rafi Fine are always cool to hear what they're up to. I don't know if you've ever checked out their series that is, about kids react, but they'll play a video, a popular YouTube video, and get kids to react to it. So.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. Yeah, it's great, and the pizza got me thinking. Today is the Day of Atonement for those of us of the Jewish faith, and I am fasting today, so pizza is ringing in my head.
You need to reflect on
Yes.
on your life.
I do,
right
and I
now.
shouldn't even be doing this show right now. But if I'm not doing this show right now, all I'm going to be doing is thinking of food. You get desperate as time goes on. So if my mental acuity is not with us today, I apologize. So let's move on to those. So some broadcast shows. Our producer Jason Perrier scours the internet for the list of the hottest stuff out there, and he's got the broadcast rankings this week. The Primetime Emmy Awards came in at number 5, and Tim, a lot of social media around that, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's all kinds of things going on right now. I can't tell you what all is taking place. Goldie, have you noticed anything?
I just noticed that I feel like the Emmys these days are really trying to hit, I mean, they've always hit a much younger audience than, say, some of the other award shows out there, but I think that they are really, really trying to bring in some of the younger folks into the fold, so to speak, and so they're kind of doing that right now. I think there's still a long way to go, but they're kind of doing it through social media. And you can do things like see the backstage live, and you can see exclusive video content, but I think that, of course, there's always room to push it further. And I know that, I don't know if this is actually one of our stories, which I absolutely should know, but I think what was interesting is the shows that swept, one of them being Homeland, and then the other one being Modern Family. And these shows are not necessarily, the most young shows, I guess. Their audiences don't skew that young. So I find it interesting that they're trying to skew it young, the show itself, but then the shows that won have kind of a more old demographic.
And I guess the people voting are in the older demographic, right, Tim?
Yeah, for sure. They aren't working on a job, so they've got time to vote. Hey, Mildred, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so sorry. We had technical problems on our end.
No worries. You are live, so you're going out to all our Google Plus Hangout friends right now.
Hey, Google Plus, what up?
So Mildred, you thanks for joining us this morning. Now, it's my understanding that you kind of play in this space between actually doing stuff and teaching about it, and it's kind of like living in earthquake country, because as you're teaching, the stuff shifts right underneath you. Tell us about what you're working on and what you do on a daily basis.
It's really exciting. I mean, I liken my situation to that of Sergei Eisenstein. I mean, you're making things, and while you're making them, you're theorizing them. While you're theorizing, you're teaching them. So it's an enormously exciting time. On an average day, I'm talking to students about digital aesthetics, how they feel about what they see online, in contrast to sort of the traditional legacy media of learning about the great tradition of film, the great tradition of photography. We spend a lot of time thinking about neurobiology of all things. What is it to look at something in 30-second bites? What is it to think about a cat video and cat memes, versus Paradise Lost or the traditional sort of Western literature, and what will it mean 20 years in the future, 50 years in the future? What will people look back at? In terms of my own space, I have a production company, and we make corporate videos for online space. We do advertising campaigns online. So we're deeply enmeshed in not just the creative content and trying to do things that stand out and are hopefully bordering on brilliant, but also delivering a return on investment. And so we're thinking about analytics, we're thinking about the technology, we're following, everybody who's doing something that impinges on what we do. And it's a great time to be in business with digital, because as you all three know, we're able to do international business in a way that wasn't possible when I graduated from film school. So we have clients in Abu Dhabi, we have clients in Nigeria, we have clients in the UK and the UAE. So it's just enormously exciting, and to be able to loop that back around to the students and to see what it's like from their perspective, having grown up in this space, is just thrilling.
And it might
Now,
be. Sorry, go ahead,
Lon.
I was just gonna ask, especially with corporate clients, there seems to be an expectation of higher viewership than really happens right now, mainly because the audiences are so focused. And when you're dealing with a corporate client that's used to TV style audience levels, in the tens of millions and maybe 20s of millions versus 500,000 or 1 million, has that been a difficult education that you've had to provide to some of these corporate folks as to how the web works versus media that they may be more accustomed to?
Lon, it's incredibly challenging. What we tell them is, okay, if you have 20 million views on television using the traditional, flawed, but widely accepted Nielsen ratings, and you own a restaurant chain that's based in Southern California and Arizona, how many of those people are actually going to come to your restaurant? So it's really kind of pray and spray, that you're spending an enormous amount of money and you're not really sure of the return on investment. What we ask them to think about is, if we get you 50,000 views, and those people live within a 10-mile radius of your home, or your business rather, and you see an immediate impact on your sales, then what's really the value of the campaign? I mean, we hope that even with the help of technology like the Red and the Canon, which we use a great deal, sometimes we use 35 still, but we hope that we're making things that could be competitive in that space. But at the same time, we think that if they look at the analytics and they look at the engagement of their consumers or their viewers, that they're going to see a real material difference. But it is a struggle to get people to see that.
Right, because they're used to seeing just those hard numbers, like, oh, I know 5 million people are going to see this, but it doesn't ever translate into sales.
No, it doesn't ever translate, and it can't translate. And what we say is that you can't eat goodwill and the happiness that emerges from a great campaign. You have a great creative campaign, but if it doesn't translate into a return on investment, if it doesn't translate into really excited fans who are going to go out and basically be your marketing extension, then what do you really have? It's difficult. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, has talked about, sort of the analytics and how difficult it is to figure out, exactly what's going on with the numbers. Because, if YouTube becomes the sort of de facto analytics, who knows what will happen with the new Nielsen things. And, TubeMogul is proposing something. It's all over the space. But, we emphasize, no, we don't have consistent numbers, but you never really had consistent numbers with television either.
And I'm just curious. Oh,
go ahead, Goldie.
okay. I was just curious, Mildred, what is a project that you are working on now, or maybe recently, that you are excited about in the digital space?
Thanks, Goldie. That's a really great question, because we're doing a bunch of things. One, we're developing a web series that we are going to be pitching to the Sci-Fi Channel that we're really excited about. We're finishing up the first season of a comedy web series called Etiquette, based on a HarperCollins UK property, and we're partnering with the Emily Post Institute and also with a company called Blipbar. I don't know if you know them. They're mobile augmented technology in the UK. So where traditional QR codes have been really push technology, Blipbar is really kind of pull technology, where you're pulling out three-dimensional images, and so we're working with them as well. We also have a new ad campaign coming up with a company called IMX, which is a franchise based in New York that sells a sort of Pilates system and sort of a Pi-Yo kind of chain and so forth. So we still maintain our corporate clients while we're doing our scripted work. So those are the 4 projects that we're powering ahead on at the moment.
Mildred, I'm curious about when you're teaching and what you're seeing in terms of the quality of student that's coming into the marketplace. I mean, when I was in college, we went to school to get our hands on the gear, and now these kids have grown up with gear in their house that they can make a video and distribute it internationally. Are you seeing the students come in that are way advanced, or are they just staying out of school and making their own videos online?
3 different things are happening. The digital divide means that kids who are growing up without access to internet, and this is not just poor urban kids, it's rural kids, it's kids that come from, different international spaces, they still are coming for the gear and the hands-on experience. Kids who have had access to the technology don't necessarily know how to use it well. I mean, they're facile with it, but they don't necessarily know how to place themselves within kind of two things. One is the greater artistic tradition of filmed entertainment, and second, they don't necessarily know how to solve the upcoming problems. Because as you all three know, the technology is changing so quickly that what is au courant today, might easily be outdated, in a year and 6 months and so forth. So what we really are engaged in is teaching them how to be part of that tradition, how to deal with the shifts in the marketplace and technology, and then the third thing is how to work collaboratively. One of the things I love about this space is, as somebody who came from traditional legacy media, is the Silicon Valley sort of approach, where you're really working collaboratively. We work with a couple of production companies where we talk regularly about, business. Oh, you got $1,000 for this, and we got $15,000 because prices are still all over the map. But we also talk about aesthetics. How can we deliver a greater experience, a richer experience for people online? How can we make it funnier? How can we make it visually more dynamic? How can we start to really use interactive 3D and HD in ways that haven't been done before? And those are enormously fun conversations to extend to the students.
And the students probably have a lot of great ideas too for how to utilize some of these things in ways that we're not even thinking about. Just having them having the benefit of growing up with it, versus us who've just kind of we were kind of there for the silent movie era, right?
Digital natives.
Yeah, right.
I was there for the daguerreotype.
So I had my JVC VHS camcorder that I was running around with, but
I still have my 8-track. I'm going to hold on until the day I die.
Lon, was that the Michael J. Fox
we learned a
version?
lot from them, but they didn't. We learned a lot from them, and
it was bigger than Michael J. Fox's, actually. What was funny? What was funny was that back when I was a kid, it wasn't cool to be running around taking videos of stuff, right? And now it is. I mean, it's changed so much that it must be a really exciting time to be in educating people about how to use this stuff.
When I started with video, I was part of a group in New York City. I grew up in New York called Toxic Avengers. And we were using the old heavy Betacam cameras out of a place called Film Video Arts and filming Domino Sugar dumping toxins into the river right by the Williamsburg Bridge. So I came to it through documentary, through Third World Newsreel and so forth. And it's really interesting to see kids hold up just a regular smartphone and take really great images. And we've been talking just this week about the fact that a film like Born into Brothels, the film that was taken in the red light district of Calcutta, would have been impossible with a 35 meg rig, a 16 meg rig. The intimacy that you need to be able to deal with some of these stories has made an enormous difference, not just in how we shoot it, but in terms of the content that we're able to collect.
It's fascinating stuff.
And so what do you think that we need, Mildred, then to kind of encourage these younger creators for the future? Because sometimes I get asked by younger people, they're like, how do I get started? And I'm like, well, just get a camera and start shooting. But I'm wondering if there's more specific advice that you have for the younger people who are just getting started, who may or may not be going to school.
I think that getting a camera and just shooting is, here's the parallel, Goldie, for me. It's the early efforts to just sort of send laptops to Africa with the idea that people would somehow miraculously become computer coders and go to work for Google and Yahoo. If kids get cameras, they'll play. And I think that there's real value to that. If we want them to start making things and thinking about the world, I think a terrific place to start is for them to start doing sort of mini documentaries. And there are so many film festivals, so many opportunities now for them to showcase their work at that level, because I think it helps them to build out to narrative work if they just really engage the world around them and use the camera in that way. Second thing is I think that they can, so I think using the festivals and the competitions is a really great way. Second, working in groups. I mean, media centers are no longer really active, but every town has got some sort of a group, a class where people can get together. If they learn that and they start watching the things, again, going back to kind of the apprenticeship model, I love the idea of them jumping in and doing stuff, then taking a step back and seeing, well, what else has been done, so that they realize that they're part of an ongoing conversation, and then going back with the tools now in the perspective to make great work. I think young people are in a better position today than they have been in in 100 years of filmmaking to go out and do extraordinary things, if they have both pieces of the puzzle.
Right, and I think that's why education is probably it's still a very important component in that mix, unless you're just insanely naturally talented. But even then, there's still a lot to be learned, right?
Yeah, I mean, Lon, the thing of it is the economy is just, we had a meeting with a pretty A-list celebrity to do this web series and to be an investor, and here's what the kids face. Film stars and film directors are becoming TV stars and TV directors. TV stars and TV directors are going online. And there's enormous pressure on budget. And so, while there are great opportunities to make work, the whole challenge of being paid for intellectual property, which is what the newspapers face, which is what free radio, over-the-air radio faces, impacts them in a very, very aggressive way. And so part of what we're doing with them in terms of giving them an education is the ability to kind of understand how to make those shifts in a complex world where the old rules really don't apply. I mean, collectively, we've seen the world of work sort of fall apart in terms of, like, you go to a job, you work 20 years, you get the pension and the watch. Right. Not only doesn't that work in economic terms, in technological terms, I mean, everybody's seen, the videos and shift happens. I mean, you go to engineering school, you are au courant for 5-6 years, and then you either move to management or the entrepreneurial track because your skills are no longer relevant unless you're continually educating yourself. So if they come, they've got to learn the skills, the techniques on how to keep educating yourself over a lifetime, as opposed to it being a 4-year deal or a 6-year deal that is complete and will serve you for the rest of your career.
So you got to learn how to learn.
That's what we always said, but I think it's a lot more relevant now since you'll starve if you don't.
Right. Well, I guess it's good. It's a good motivator, if anything. So, Mildred, we know you have a meeting in about 5 minutes, so we don't want to keep you, but you're welcome to stick around as we continue to talk about the world of social media if you're eager to stick around or able to.
Yeah, I'm going to stick it down for another minute or so. And again, thank you so much for having me and your patience. I'm so sorry. I tested over this yesterday with the technology, and I had to call somebody from IT over. So the tech diva was reduced to a quivering wail of snot and tears.
Mildred, where can people get a hold of you if they want to check out some of the stuff that you're working on? Is there a website they can go to?
Sure. I'm on IMDb, of course, and then my company is www.foxlewisproject.com, and they can reach me at mildred@foxlewisproject.com. We always respond to people who are interested in talking about the space. I may not always respond, but one of the interns, one of my colleagues will respond.
And you're on Twitter as well?
Yeah, I'm at the Mil10, and we're also at Fox Lewis Project, all one word, no spaces.
Great.
Well, it sounds like you don't sleep at all, Mildred. So
sleep is sleep, Lon. Sleep is highly overrated.
You don't need
right. You don't need that in the modern era either. So, well, that's great. Well, we really appreciate you having you on, and we'll if you got to take off, we certainly understand, but we greatly appreciate your insight. I'm sure we'll have you back again too as we find more interesting things to talk about.
Goldie, Lon, and Tim, it has been a blast, even in like 20 minutes or so. My best to all your Hangout friends, and hope to see you again soon.
We will. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
And Tim, the back to our TV picks this week, a big social media event actually centered around our #1 pick on the ratings for television, and that had to do with Sunday Night Football and that horrific call that the call heard around the world. I'm sure you heard about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to have made the NBC nightly news even in terms of there's a lockout on the referees in the NFL, and they brought in some refs that aren't necessarily up to snuff, and there was a call that was a bad call, decided a game, and now there's a lot of upset people. And
all heck broke loose. My Twitter and Facebook stream exploded, and it's funny. You have people who often tweet about very specific things. Everybody was talking about the football game, and that got me interested because I wasn't watching it. I was one of the few that wasn't, apparently. But it even found some common ground amongst the presidential contenders. So there's hope for America. We can unite behind bad refs in football. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that social media is in some ways becoming the TV guide now, because you're not watching TV, you're spending time in social media, and there's no way to see promos because you're not watching television the way you used to watch television. So the only way you're going to see a promo or hear about a show is if somebody tweets it or shares it on Facebook. And Clayton from Fox News, Clayton Moore, he's someone I follow on Twitter, and somehow he posted something in Branch, and I never used Branch, and it pinged me, and it was about NBC's Revolution, and I had seen some promos for Revolution. I was like, I'm not gonna, it's not. And then he pinged me, and somehow the trailer showed up in my stream, and so I watched the trailer, and I was like, okay, this looks better than I thought it was from the original promos. So thanks to him, I'm probably going to watch the show now. I haven't watched it yet, but I'll probably watch it.
And I think that speaks to Twitter's real shift in strategy here, where they've really been getting very tightly connected with NBC and a lot of other networks, because I can't watch television anymore, especially in the morning, without seeing Twitter hashtags flying about. And that's no accident. There's clearly a desire here on the part of Twitter to wrap their social media service around live television. And I think it's alienating developers and some other folks who were using Twitter for different purposes, but it seems like that is their commercial business model.
Well,
here, is to really
I
wrap
know
around
that
television.
I know that they've hired some agents away from, or at least one agent that I know of from CAA, now works in business development at Twitter, and I would imagine that his marching orders are to line up as many TV studios and TV networks as possible, and movie studios as well, to get them involved with Twitter and how they can benefit from it.
Wow. Well, there's a lot to talk about there in the future, no doubt. Let's look at cable briefly. Sons of Anarchy on FX was number 5. Royal Pains, number 4. Major Crimes on TNT, number 3. So these scripted shows are still doing well on the cable rankings. And then the NFL had the top 2 spots on cable. And Jason had sent over, Jason Perrier, our producer, who's a proud Canadian, sent over a recommendation for a police drama that is now making its way from Canada television to U.S. television. And what was the name of that show, Tim? I had the email.
I'm blanking on it right now. Something Force, right?
Yeah. It's Something Force. But we were. It was just interesting. There's actually a lot of pretty good Canadian television shows that never make it over to these shores. This one did. Flashpoint, it's called. And that's not on the list here, but it's starting to show up on Ion Television, which is a kind of a basically a syndication network here in the U.S. And my wife's been watching some of those episodes. It's been pretty good. So a lot of these shows too on USA and FX and others are made in Canada too. So like the Vancouver area is really kind of turning into a place to go, right?
Well, a lot of the U.S. shows are made there just because of the tax incentives. It makes sense to to do all the production in Canada. You look at Battlestar Galactica, that was all shot in Vancouver. Almost every show that isn't, full of well-known Hollywood actors is shot in Canada.
Right.
They fly the key actors up there. And X-Files for years was shot in Canada, and then the last couple of years was shot in Los Angeles. So that's been going on for a long time. I think it'll be interesting to see if ever we have a shift. I know there have been some shows recently shot in Detroit because there were a lot of tax incentives there as well. And there's a big debate going on with the tax incentives. Do they really bring money to the local economy, or is it just a drain on resources for the local economy? And I don't know that there's a clear winner on that. I hear arguments on each side of the coin, but nonetheless, for the television networks, it makes great sense for them to go take advantage of these tax incentives and be able to, there's a web series coming out in October, first or second week of October, and it's, I think, the biggest budgeted web series ever for $10 million, the entire web series, only 5 episodes, but it does cut into a feature film, and it was all shot in Canada, it was all shot in Vancouver. Now, it was funded by a little company out of Washington State called Microsoft, and it is for a video game called Halo 4, and it looks like Battlestar Galactica. I'm pretty excited about this.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to check that out. I've seen some people talking about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool, and only a few weeks till it comes out. Should be pretty exciting.
So I go through this video game binge between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that'll be, is that out before the holidays, Tim?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. It'll be out, and then the game comes out in November. So they're going to use the month of October to run the web series to promote the video game. And I don't think they needed a web series to promote this video
right.
game.
You know, it's going to sell no matter what they do.
I don't think they need any sort of promotion for the new Halo game.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it'll be interesting to see if they make their money back, because my understanding through the grapevine is that Machinima popped up some money to get the rights to this. So I don't know if it's going to be exclusive on a Machinima channel on Xbox,
right.
or if it's just going to be on the web or what. It'll be interesting to see how. I don't know what the distribution strategy is.
Yeah, it might be really interesting to see if we can possibly get someone from Machinima to come on and talk about that project, because especially before it goes live, which is something, Tim, that you.
I'll call Woody and see what Woody can do over there for us.
Maybe we can bring them on board and they can talk about this wonderfully expensive web series project and how excited they are about it.
that would be cool to talk about. And you know, it almost reminds me of all this video game video stuff. Almost reminds me of Wing Commander. Tim, do you remember Wing Commander?
That was after my time.
That was after your time?
Yeah, I was into looping. I was into Tron, Robotron.
Yeah, see, I was into those too, but
Defender,
right?
Defender, Stargate.
Stargate. Those were good arcade games. Well, Wing Commander was a like a space shoot 'em up for the PC back in, I think the first one came out in 1991, and it had a cartoony kind of storyline. It was great. My friends and I were into it big time. In '94, they went from the cartoony, just text thing to full live-action production movie quality cinema, basically that would interplay in between the missions that you'd fly. Mark Hamill from Star Wars was the main character. He was like the pilot who was working his way back into respect after all this stuff. It was actually really well done, and the budget on these games were immense, especially so considering that most people didn't have the hardware to even play these games. They came delivered on 4 or 5 CD-ROMs. This is back in the early 90s, but we might be getting back to that, it seems, now with with some web video to promote these projects. So that's kind of a neat full circle there. You guys want to talk about the box office? Because there was some interesting stuff, I thought, this week, because 3 of the top 5 are new movies, and 2 are not new. One is actually kind of old. Number 5 is Resident Evil Retribution, speaking of video games, right? It grossed 6.7 over the weekend for a total of $33.5 million. Number 4 is Finding Nemo, which I think Goldie was excited about, right? In 3D.
I think I might try to go see that if I'm not in the middle of packing. But yes, it looks fun.
3D. So they raked in another $30 million since the re-release. So apparently making things in 3 dimensions is not such a bad idea. And it probably is easier to do with computer-generated stuff than not. So that was intriguing. And Clint Eastwood has a movie out about it's funny, a lot of the movies that Clint Eastwood's doing now is being like past your prime. So this latest one here is a ailing baseball scout in his twilight years taking his daughter along for one last recruiting trip. There are no empty chairs in the film.
Bummer.
That's number 3. I loved him in Space Cowboys. Did you guys see that one? That was an older film, but that was funny. He was a retired, washed-out astronaut.
he's just a curmudgeon. That's his new role.
That's his new role. Is just being the curmudgeon. Make my day. House at the End of the Street is a horror movie. Mother and daughter move into a new town and find themselves living next door to a house where a young girl murdered her parents. And when the daughter befriends her surviving son, she learns the story is far from over. 12.3 million this week, and number 2 on our list. And number 1 is End of Watch, which is about 2 young officers who start messing around with a drug cartel, taking their guns and money and drugs and stuff. And you can imagine that sets the stage for
just another day on the LAPD.
Exactly. The cover photo has these guys wielding AK-47s that they no doubt confiscated from.
Happens every day.
Every day. Just another day at the office, right?
Well, I know, Tim, when you open the door to your place, as I do, I walk outside and I see this, outside, 2 guys holding AK-47s going, hey,
Yep, absolutely.
And there are, of course, movie stars as well.
Of
So.
course.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't in the Los Angeles area that are listening, LA is a very, very dangerous place. You can't even walk to your car without breaking a fingernail or something. It's pretty bad.
Without
Tragic.
accidentally running into an A-lister.
Tragic. Now, Tim, you opening this week is a film called Looper, and I think you have a connection to this director, right?
Yeah, Ryan Johnson. I used to work with. I had a production company, and Ryan was a writer, producer, director there, and great guy, great film. One day, Ryan came to me and he said, I want to take some time off. I want to make films. And I was like, okay, cool, sounds great. What are you working on? And he's like, I really want to do like some con artist type films. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so, he went freelance, and he would still come back and work a little bit. And one day he shows me this really cool short film that's about like a con. And he says, yeah, I'm working on this screenplay, and it looks like money's coming together. I'm going to do this film and see if we can get it into Sundance. Well, he does the film. He gets it into Sundance, a film called Brick. So kind of a classic film in indie cinema, and it won a Sundance Audience Award back in 2005. And then he did a couple other films that came out, big stars like Adrian Brody. And now this new film, Looper, looks fantastic. It's getting a lot of play. The kid from Third Rock from the Sun is all grown up and in it. And he was just the host of Saturday Night Live this last weekend. So Bruce Willis is in the film, and it's about a time traveler that comes back in time to deal with himself. So it should be pretty interesting to see.
And I guess he's like a hitman that goes back in time and kills people that the mob wants offed before
Yeah,
they even...
and so it's his job to go kill himself.
Wow.
Yeah. So Ryan wrote it, directed it, big film. And I think he still owes me a beer. So I don't know if I will,
maybe after that release he can get you one.
Yeah, he's changed his phone number now, doesn't return my calls. The usual kind of, making it big in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You should send those two guys with AK-47s over to his house.
Say they're from the future.
From the future. There you go.
There you go. Now, another film opening this week is The Other Dream Team, which is a documentary about the 1992 Lithuanian basketball team who lost to the U.S. Dream Team, which was led by Michael Jordan, but they had a great story, and the Grateful Dead sponsored the Lithuanian basketball team, so they all had their team colors were tie-dye, at least when they were on the medal stand. So it sounds like a really neat story, and part of it is that four of these players that were on the Lithuanian team in '92 were part of the Soviet Union's 1988 team that beat the United States and probably led to this whole professionalization of NBA basketball players coming into the Olympics. So really neat film, it looks like. So that is one to keep an eye on as we go. And we're running short on time, but you want to talk about YouTube real quick?
Sure.
So iPhones dominate, number 1 and number 5 on our list. One is a parody on a taller challenge. And here is the phone. Again, isn't it beautiful?
It doesn't look as long as it is in that video on YouTube.
Here,
No,
let's
it doesn't.
do a comparison. Here, there we go.
There you go.
It does look
Wow.
a little taller. There we go.
It's a little bit taller.
Yeah.
Turn the screen on here, you can see. So, but it's a great phone. But it's funny just how people are so obsessed with these iPhones. It's just amazing. I didn't even realize. I wrote the review that I did in 15 minutes. Did a quick little video over the weekend. Put the whole thing up on the site that I write for. It's a site called CT News Junkie, which is a site about Connecticut politics. So technology is part of the tools that political people use, but is not the main focus of this website. The story was the top story of like the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
Just a review of the phone. So it's like it's just a cultural phenomenon at this point.
Have you dropped it yet?
I have not dropped it yet, but it's so light and airy that it's so possible that I might.
But if you did, you could have made a video about it, and that video would have done well.
Yes, the iPhone 5 versus Samsung Galaxy S3 drop test, which was viewed 5.4 million times. So it's like every iPhone viewer or owner watched the video, at least with the new iPhone.
And I don't know if you guys have heard of this prank, but they have been doing this one prank right now. I forget who it is who's doing this, but they have been taking boxes of iPhone 5s and they have been dressing up like Apple employees and they've been dropping it in front of fanboys.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding. Like
the
dropping
empty boxes.
Oh, really? To see like how they all jump on top of it or something like that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance to check out another video on YouTube, look for Gunmen Style. It's a parody of the You Know What video.
Oh, I have to check that out. And there's been a couple parodies. So what's this one?
Oh, it's a great one. Oh, and then there's also one of, I think, the University of Michigan marching band does a cover of Gangnam Style.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so there's some fun parodies going on right now. But Gunman Style. I don't want to tell you anything about it, but if you like parodies and you like westerns, it's a fun one.
That's great. Well, I will look for that one as well. Couple of little things of note here. The Walking Dead, which is one of my favorite shows on AMC, is going to be releasing a web series on October 1st. And I guess they did that before the season 2 premiere also. So kind of a different angle for what's been going on. But Movie Viral is reporting this. So looks like AMC is going to do it again for this season, a brief little web series there. And Goldie and Tim, I'd just like to hear your thoughts. You work in this industry. Are these successful marketing tools or just something for the fans to kind of relate to?
Well, I think especially when you're using it as a pre-season kind of warm opener, I think that they can be really effective. It always depends on who your audience is. And with The Walking Dead, they have the luxury that they do have an audience who does like a lot of web content. And so having that, I'm sure you watched the web series as a fan of Walking Dead before it actually, before the season actually came out. So I think that for certain shows, these make a lot of sense. Your thoughts, Tim?
I think we're going to see a model emerge where people will build an audience online ahead of time and then take that audience to a TV show, take them to a movie, and then from the TV show back to the website or from the movie back to the website. If you look at the model of wrestling, professional wrestling, they build a story arc and give it away for free. On television. I mean, there's commercials, but it's free TV, and that story arc builds to a pay-per-view event where in one night, they bring in millions and millions of dollars on pay-per-view just because they built this soap opera style story arc, and that seems to work. I just haven't seen it work yet in the web video space, and I think it's coming.
I think so too, and this is something clearly the fans will be excited about because everyone's been dying to little play on words there. Right? Everybody's been dying to see what happens next now with The Walking Dead as they're back on the road again after being stuck on that farmhouse for for the last season. So it'll be kind of a neat thing. Battlestar Galactica did that too. They had a web series from when they were stuck on the planet when they were fleeing the Cylons there, and they did a whole little web series with a couple of the characters from the show, but a bunch of people that were not regulars who
and Heroes did that with
right.
David H. Lawrence, the 2018, the 17th, I always forget, but David Lawrence, the puppet master from Heroes, was on a web series that they did, and he played the same character who kind of worked in an office cubicle, which was fun.
That is very fun. Well, we will let our viewers go off and watch all these great things, and we'll be back again next week for Behind the Video, and I'll be well fed by then, hopefully. So, Goldie, where can people find you?
People can always find me on the Twitterverse at Goldie Chan, and then at my new show's URL, costofcapitaltv.com.
And how many episodes will come out? Is it once a week? Is that the?
It's once a week. This upcoming Monday, we're actually not releasing an episode. We're doing a recap of the red carpet, so we're getting some behind-the-scenes interviews with some of our cast and crew, and we're also doing a little bit of a preview clip for the next week's episode.
Exciting stuff. Well, I've been watching and I'm a fan, so I will continue to do so. And Tim, where can people find you?
You can find me One Tim Street on Twitter.
Excellent. And this is Lon Seidman. You can find me at lonseidman.com. We record this show every Thursday at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 a.m.
Except for
Eastern
this week,
time.
It's on Wednesday.
Except for this week, it was on a Wednesday. Mainly, I have to go speak at a thing tomorrow, and then I have to go sit in the Apple store to go haggle over my phone's Wi-Fi problem. So, and my MacBook has a screen issue. I'm just, all my Apple stuff is falling apart. It's terrible. So I will be at the Apple store, and I figured it might be better to do a show a day early. So thank you both for accommodating me. So we will be back again next week, though, on Behind the Video. This show is a wrap. Stories for this episode were compiled by producer Jason Perrier. Follow him on Twitter at JASONPERRIER. Behind the Video is a production of Ape Digital Incorporated and the Independent Media Network, LLC. All rights reserved.